Mentzer knew, too much or too little rest can sabotage your progress. Mentzer taught that the stimulus, the effective set, and recovery are a single process divided into two acts. The gym provides the signal, rest executes the work. If you cut recovery short, the work remains incomplete. If you extend the weight to the point of losing the continuity of the stimulus, the work never even gets started. His famous mantra, train brief, intense and infrequent, is not an invitation to inactivity. It is a formula for optimizing the timing between stimulus and recovery to achieve sustained progress. In practice, this raises two key questions that often cause confusion among natural practitioners and coaches. How much rest does my body need between sessions to convert the stimulus into growth? When does rest become excessive rest? That dilutes adaptation and breaks progression. In this chapter, we design practical answers to both questions with the intention that anyone, novice, intermediate, or advanced natural trainee, can apply a simple and reproducible criterion, also using your Hepaduxo operational framework to implement it in daily life. Let's see it in 5 essential sections. Section Index, Chapter 16. What we'll cover. Section 1. The basic principle. Why rest is part of the stimulus. Section 2. The opposite danger. A. Resting too much when the gap is counterproductive. Section 3. The opposite danger. B. Resting too little. How subclinical overtraining kills you. Section 4. Finding your optimal window. The practical algorithm. Frequency plus intensity plus duration. Section 5. Practical correction guide and examples. What to do today if you fail. Notes on sources and fidelity to Mentzer in these sections. I will apply the core ideas that Mentzer presented in his books and seminars. Rest is an integral part of the stimulus. The logic of stimulus economy, intense, brief and infrequent, and the recommendation to space sessions according to individual recovery. I will also consider historical criticisms and nuances, for example, debates about the extreme length between sessions that some interpreted as too much rest, to offer a balanced and practical guide. Section 1. The basic principle. Why rest is part of the stimulus. This section will make it clear what exact role rest plays within the heavy-duty method, why the set is the signal and rest is the response, and very importantly what to expect in terms of days' time windows when you plan your sessions. If you don't understand this, you will miscalibrate frequency, you will train too often or wait so long that you lose the continuity of the stimulus. One central idea, Mentzer's logic. The set is the signal, rest is the response in heavy duty, the set to failure properly executed is the trigger. It introduces the information that forces the body to adapt. The rest that follows is not inactivity. It is the active phase where adaptation occurs. Fiber repair, protein synthesis, neural reorganization, and ultimately increases in strength and mass. Mentzer summarized this with phrases like, if you don't rest enough, you don't grow enough, and programmed long rest periods for this reason. His practical experience told him that recovery is as important as training intensity. Think of training like starting an engine. The set is the spark, rest is the controlled burn that produces real work. If you spark without giving it time to burn, your engine doesn't gain power. If you spark so rarely that it cools down completely, it also doesn't produce progress. To complete recovery versus supercompensation. Definitions and why they matter. Complete recovery. Returning to your functional baseline, same available strength, same neural pattern, capacity to generate the same amount of work. It restores what the training consumed. Supercompensation, the extra effect that occurs after recovery. Your system not only returns to baseline but slightly increases its capacity to handle the same task. More strength, more size, or better skill. This window is where you want to place the next stimulus to accumulate adaptation. In practical terms, if you apply the next stimulus before recovering, gives you accumulate fatigue. If you apply it too late, after supercompensation is passed and you're back to baseline, you lose continuity and the ability to progress from session to session. 3. Typical time window. What to expect in days. Practical guidelines. The exact numbers vary by individual age, genetics, nutrition, and magnitude of the stimulus, but there are useful trends. Molecular response, MPS, muscle protein synthesis. After an intense session, MPS rises quickly hours and can remain clearly elevated for approximately 24 to 48 hours. Some studies observe elevation for up to 48 hours and even signals returning to baseline around 36 to 72 hours depending on the protocol and subject. This explains why nutrition and the first 48 hours are critical for closing the anabolic window. Functional recovery, strength and CNS recovery. Of the capacity to generate maximum strength and CNS recovery often takes longer than molecular MPS, often 48 hours to 7 days, depending on absolute intensity and collateral volume DOMS damage. Mentzer observed in practice that for his high-intensity approach, many practitioners needed 4 to 7 days between intense sessions per muscle group. Practical supercompensation, the detectable functional improvement, more reps or kilos, usually reveals itself within the next 4 to 10 days in heavy-duty protocols, because the stimulus is strong and the neural and structural recovery that marks the gain needs that time. This is why Mentzer proposed long spaces between stimuli compared to high-volume programs. Summary, rule, guideline, valid for most naturals. intense molecular window, 0 to 48H. Initial functional recovery, 48H 7 days recommended spacing, heavy duty 4 to 7 days per intense session. Adjust according to individual. For why science and Mentzer agree, growth happens outside the gym. Physiological studies show that exercise initiates processes mTOR, MPS remodeling that occur after the session. MASS gain is the accumulation of these repeated anabolic episodes with recovery between them. Mentzer, from practical and philosophical observation, argued exactly that. The difference is not in how many hours you spend sweating, but in whether the body had the opportunity to convert that stimulus into growth and that requires sufficient rest. Therefore, reducing training is not doing less in a useless sense, it is optimizing the time of the signal and the response window. If your stimulus is intense, the scarcest resource is not how much more you can do, but how much you can allow the body to assimilate. 5. Why this is essential. If you don't understand it, you'll miscalibrate frequency. If you underestimate the need for rest, train too often, you accumulate central and peripheral fatigue. RPE rises, reps drop, risk of stagnation or subclinical overtraining. Result: more hours training but less progress. If you overestimate the need, wait so long you lose continuity. Your stimulus loses its power as a memory. Adaptations are spaced too far apart in time, and practical progression slows down because there isn't enough repetition of the signal over time. The middle ground, the optimal window, is where you maximize supercompensation and maintain continuity. Mentzer knew this from experience and recommended it in his methodology. Spaces of approximately 4 to 7 days adjusted per individual. 6 practical examples, so it's not abstract. Example A. Novice who trains every 48 hours to be safe reality. His MPs may still be elevated, but his CNS and technical pattern have not fully recovered. He arrives at the next session with higher RPE and less polished technique, gives fewer reps and more accumulated damage. Result: stagnation or regression. What to do? Space out to 4 to 6 days per group and record reps tut RPE. If it improves, more reps or less RPE, establish it as a routine. Example B. Intermediate heavy-duty trainee who waits 10 to 14 days between sessions to rest, more reality. Loses continuity. The memory of the stimulus is diluted and the progression line becomes inconsistent. What to do? Reduce the interval to 4 to 8 days and observe if micro-progression emerges, for example, +1 rep in 2 to 3 cycles. 7. How to apply this today. Mini practical protocol. N=1. Define your stimulus. Intense session gives record load. Reps tut RPE. Wait for the minimum window. Do not train that group again before 48 to 72 hours. Evaluate readiness on day 4 to 7. Is RPE lower or the same with the same load? Morning RHR, normal. DOMs reasonable, less than 72 hours. If yes, gives proceed to the session. If no, gives wait 1 to 3 more days or do active recovery. Test for 2 to 3 cycles, 6 to 9 weeks, and adjust. If you progress, maintain. If not, lengthen or shorten by 1 to 2 days and retest. Quick rules based on level start. Natural beginner, try 4 to 7 days between intense sessions per group. Natural intermediate, 5 to 9 days depending on response. Natural advanced, slower recovery, 7 to 10 plus days. Individualize. 8 signals that confirm you are in the correct window with the same load. RPE drops or stays the same and reps increase. Microprogression. DOMS disappears in 24 to 72 hours and does not compromise technique. RHR, HRV, stable or improving. Energy and motivation to train are high in the key session. 9 practical phrases for your notebook printable. The set gives the signal. Rest builds the response, it's not less, it's optimizing the window. If you repeat and don't progress, increase rest. If you wait and don't progress, reduce rest. Closing of section 1. What you should remember: the set is the signal. Rest is the conversion into adaptation. Molecular recovery. MPS does not equal complete functional recovery. CNS. Strength. Practical heavy-duty window. Try 4 to 7 days and adjust based on data. Reps tut, RPE RHR. If you apply this with discipline and verify it in your notebook, you will stop losing progression from training too much or waiting too long, and that is exactly what Mike Mentzer wanted to teach you. Section to the opposite danger. A. Resting too much when the gap is counterproductive. In this section we will break down what resting too much really means, why it can sabotage progression even though it seems like the opposite, what signals allow you to detect it in time, typical examples, real cases, and how Mentzer nuanced his system is, with psychoatypical example, example, atypical agical of example, lixical exam, umbekla example, kixelim, aken bixam, al, and taham, well up, whip it web, ben, on, we prepare, At the end, you will have practical rules and a mini protocol to know when to shorten a rest interval without risking recovery. What will we discover here? What is resting too much? Operational definition. Concrete signs of excessive rest, objective and subjective. Typical cases where it appears, beginners, extreme consolidation programs. How Mentzer adjusted his approach to this risk and the historical criticism experience. Practical application. Rules to identify when to reduce the rest interval and how to do it safely. 1. What does resting too much mean? Operational definition. Resting too much equals spacing out stimuli to the point where you lose continuity in the signal that provokes adaptation. In practice, this translates to fewer stimulus repetitions per unit of time, for example, one session every 10 to 14 days, and a drop in the frequency of micro-progressions, i.e. you no longer see small repeated increases in reps. Load because the stimulus is too dispersed. In short, it's not that more rest is always better, it's useful rest. If the pause is so long that the functional memory of the stimulus is diluted, progression becomes irregular or stops. 2 signs of excessive rest. What to look for in your notebook and body. A. Objective signs record this. Absence of microgains after 2 to 3 cycles, 6 to 12 weeks. There is no +1 rep or +1 to 2% in load on your anchors. High variability in reps. High variability in reps. One day 10 reps. 2 to 3 weeks later you're back to 8 to 9 with the same load and new technique. Worsening technique. ROM decreases. Timing worsens. Coordination is less fine in compound movements. Disconnected TUT RPE. Natural cadence changes, you do faster repetitions or cut the eccentric. To save the set, be subjective signs, don't ignore these. Feels weird. Returning to the load. Lack of confidence or coordination. Strange oxygenation sensations. It's not fatigue, it's adaptation. Less neuromuscular buzz. You don't feel the certainty or nerve you had before. Frustrating progression due to irregularity. You go up in one session then drop and there's no clear line. C. Context signals. Self-imposed long intervals without objective proof of recovery. For example, I'll wait 10 days because I feel weak but RHR and sleep are okay. Programs that use 10 to 14 days as dogma without proven N=1 testing. 3 typical cases. How it appears in real life. Case A. The hypercautious beginner. Behavior believes more rest equals less injury, gives trains every 10 to 14 days. Typical result. Loses speed in technique and coordination. Microprogression is very slow. Why it happens? The signal is not repeated with the minimum continuity needed to consolidate neural and technical adaptation. Case B. Extreme consolidation programs. Example. Protocols that propose separating sessions by 10 to 14 days under the idea of maximizing growth without measuring the effect. Historical criticism. Some misinterpreted Mentzer's rest philosophy, thinking the more rest the better, and applied excessive pauses that ended up slowing progress or causing technical regression. Practical observation. For certain athletes it might have worked, pros with assisted recovery or different genetics, but for most naturals it produced a loss of continuity. Case C. The busy person who chooses random days behavior, trains only when they can, leaving irregular intervals of 8 to 12 plus days. Result. Inconsistencies in the performance curve. The only real solution is to create minimal regularity, even if it's low frequency, to maintain neural memory. For how Mentzer adjusted his approach and the criticisms, subsequent experiences, what Mentzer said. Summary. Faithful to his practice, Mentzer advocated for long rests compared to volume methods because his premise was that one truly intense set needs time to recover and translate into adaptation. His typical recommended spaces for many practitioners were approximately 4 to 7 days per anchor, sometimes more depending on intensity and the person. The historical misunderstanding. Some interpretations took this to extremes. 10 to 14 days fixed by dogma. Mentzer criticized training without criteria and, conversely, also warned against dogmas that repeated any rule without measuring it. Accumulated experience showed that overly long rests break the continuity of the stimulus for most naturals. Practical adjustment. Mentzer did not give a single number for everyone. He proposed an empirical approach. Apply an initial interval, for example, 4 to 7 days, measure results, adjust based on data, not on feelings. In practice, he taught to individualize. Some subjects improved with 7 to 10 days. Others, especially beginners, progressed better with 4 to 6 days. 5. Practical application. Rules to identify when to review, reduce. The rest interval general rule, quick check. If after 2 to 3 cycles, 6 to 9 weeks you meet 2 or more of these points, gives consider reducing the interval by 1 to 2 days and retesting for 2 cycles. No micro gains on anchors, zero progress. Technique deteriorates or coordination is noticeably worse. High rep variability goes back and forth without a trend. Training feels weird, but there are no signs of systemic fatigue. Normal RHR, sleep okay. Step-by-step decision, quick diagnosis, 10-minute review, logbook, reps per anchor, RHR, DOMS note, technical quality. If 2 criteria for loss of continuity, shorten the interval by 1 to 2 days for the next session for that group. Test protocols, 2 cycles. Maintain the new interval for 2 blocks, for example, 2 to 3 total sessions, and evaluate. Do micro gains appear? Does technique improve? If it improves, maintain. If it doesn't improve and signs of fatigue appear, gives reevaluate. Maybe the problem wasn't excess rest. Practical example, intervention. You were training a group every 10 days. After an audit, you reduced to every 7 to 8 days and maintain the same structure. 1 effective set plus 2 warm-ups. After 2 cycles, you see plus 1 rep. On the anchor gives conclusion. 7 to 8 days is better for you. 6 mini protocol to shorten intervals without losing recovery if you decide to reduce the gap. Do it prudently. Reduce by 1 to 2 days, not 4 to 7 days at once. Maintain intensity. Do not add volume. Stick with 1 effective set per anchor. Control 3 variables over the next month. Reps, TUT, RPE and RHR. If RPE rises plus 1 to 2 and RHR plus 3, BPM sustained, gives stop the reduction and return to the previous window. If after 2 cycles it improves, gives consolidate, and, if you want higher frequency, try shortening by 1 more day. 7 comparative schedule, clear examples. Too long, problematic for many naturals. Week 1, Session A. Week 2, Week 3, Week 4, Session B. 10 to 14 days between stimuli from A to B, gives high risk of loss of continuity. Worse technique, moderate practical Mentzer system. Week 1, Session A, Week 2, Week 3, Session B for 7 days. Week 4, Week 5, Session A 4 to 7 days, gives continuity and time for supercompensation. 8 signals indicating you should not reduce when resting more is the option. Do not confuse resting too much with needing to rest for valid reasons. Increase rest if morning RHR plus 5 BPM sustained. Sleep 6H and doesn't recover in 1 week. DOMS greater than 72H repeatedly and compromises technique. Systemic symptoms, illness, low libido in these cases. Reduction aggravates the problem. The solution is more rest and/or active pause. 9 Hepiduxo rules applied to this problem. Practical summary. H equals schedule. Try regular blocks, for example. Wednesday equals back. To create continuity. E equals effort. Maintain 1 true set. Don't use the gap reduction to add volume. P equals test. To test cycles before concluding. I equals indicators. Reps, RPE, RHR. Technique as traffic lights. D equals decision. Reduce 1 to 2 days if 2+ indicators of loss of continuity. UXO equals use U data. Experiment X controlled. Observe O4 2 cycles. 10 practical checklist printable for your notebook. Are you resting too much? Mark if applicable. 2 to 3 cycles without micro gains on anchors. Technique visibly worse upon returning to the load. Reps with high variability, no trend. DOMS not excessive and RHR normal. This suggests no systemic fatigue. If 2+ boxes checked, gives reduce interval by 1 to 2 days. Gives test for 2 cycles, gives evaluate. 11 phrases to remember. Mentzer's voice. Stimulus economy requires continuity, not isolation. Resting to recover is useful. Resting so much that you lose the memory of the stimulus is a waste of time. 12 Section closing. Resting too much is not harmless. It keeps the body in a kind of standby where the intense set loses its function as a cumulative signal. The solution is not dogmatic. There is no universal number. The practical answer is to measure and test. If continuity fails, reduce the interval gradually and observe your data for 2 cycles. That is the sensible and Mentzerian way to balance rest and progress. Section 3. The opposite danger. B. Resting too little. How subclinical overtraining kills you in heavy duty. The other trap, the evil sister of resting too much, is training too often or with too much volume. Frequency for what your body can actually recover from. It doesn't always reach the dramatic crisis of clinical overtraining. It's almost always subclinical accumulated fatigue that reduces the quality of each set and thus cancels the purpose of the method. Here's everything you need to know what happens, how to detect it, practical thresholds, and a clear Hepiduxo protocol to act today, in 24 to 72 hours, and in 1 to 2 weeks. 1. What happens when you rest too little? Main mechanisms. A. Central fatigue, CNS. The nervous system does not recover the capacity to generate peaks of motor recruitment, result less explosiveness, less recruitment of high threshold fibers, and loss of nerve in the set. Translates to higher RPE, loss of relative strength. and a feeling of not being able to push B. Peripheral fatigue and accumulated structural damage. Excessive microdamage without time to repair causes chronic inflammation, persistent pain, long DOMS, and lower muscular work capacity as days pass. See homeostatic dysregulation, hormonal and autonomic alterations, relatively high cortisol, relatively low testosterone in some cases, elevated waking heart rate (RHR), reduced HRV, depressed immune system gives mild or more frequent infections. Technical compensations to save repetitions. You start to speed up cadence, cut ROM or use more cheating 2 drops, and the quality of the stimulus decreases. To practical effects, you'll see in your logbook and body reps decrease for the same load or stay the same but with worse technique. TUT drops because you try to throw speed at it to complete reps. RPE rises, sometimes 0.5 to 2 points on the 1 to 10 scale for the same load. HRV. Morning RHR plus 3 to 5 BPM sustained or notable drop in HRV versus your baseline. Sleep quality worsens. You wake up less rested. DOMs persists greater than 72H with each stimulus. Illnesses, recurrent colds or mild infections. Motivation decreases or you have pre-workout anxiety. If you recognize several of these signals together, you are in subclinical fatigue territory. Acting early is the best way to prevent it from becoming something major. 3 early signs and practical thresholds. What to measure in your logbook. Record daily and review weekly trends. Indicators and guideline thresholds are PE in the effective set. Plus 1 point sustained for the same load gives warning. Anchor reps. 1 rep sustained in 2 consecutive sessions gives alarm. TUT drop 10% to maintain reps gives warning. Morning RHR plus 3 to 4 BPM versus 30-day average gives caution. Plus 5 BPM sustained gives intervention. HRV sustained percentage drop greater than 10 to 20%. Relative to your baseline gives caution. Use your own range. DOMS greater than 72H repeated and compromises technical execution gives caution. Alarm. Sleep less than 6H per night for several days gives increases probability of fatigue. Mild constant infections. Systemic signal of risk. Note, use your own values as a baseline. What matters is your personal trend, not universal absolute numbers. For the more is better fallacy. Mentzer's view. Stimulus economy. Mentzer fought against the common idea, sweat and time equals result. His point was that the signal intent set must be clear and of maximum quality. If you repeat it before the organism assimilates it, you only accumulate stress, not adaptation. In other words, quantity without the capacity to assimilate equals net damage. Training must deliver information. If the information arrives when the system is stunned, it is not processed correctly. The economy of stimulus seeks the minimum amount of work that produces progress and the maximum recovery to convert that signal into adaptation. 5. Practical application. Hepiduxo protocol to reduce stimulus when signals appear. Hepiduxo applied to the problem. Actionable steps today. In 24 to 72 H. In 1 to 2 weeks. H equals schedule. Today, what to do right now, before training. If you detect signs of fatigue, do not do the set to failure. Modify session. Convert the day into mobility plus technical work or 1 submaximal set 50 to 60% times 6 to 8 without fatiguing. Do not add accessories. Record. Take morning RHR and note sleep, appetite, and general feeling. E equals effort. 24 hours. What to do in the next 24H. Active rest, light walk, dynamic stretching, gentle foam rolling, sleep. Prioritize going to bed earlier. Aim for 7 to 9H. Nutrition. Ensure adequate protein and calories, real food, carbs and post-activity meals. Reduction of extra stress. Avoid very demanding mental work that day. P equals test 48 to 72 hours. What to do in 48 to 72H. Evaluate signs, RHR, sleep, DOMS, energy. If it improves, you can return to a controlled effective session on day 3 to 4, maintaining 1 effective set per anchor and meticulous recording. If it does not improve, extend the low-intensity period another 2 to 4 days or apply an active pause. See below. I equals indicators. What to measure in the following week. Encore reps, compar, EHPATUT, daily RHR-HRV if you have it. Objective C. Stabilization or improvement RPE, lower reps same or plus 1 rep, in 7 to 14 days. D equals decision, 1-2 weeks. If indicators return to baseline, improve in 7 to 14 days, progressive reintroduction of effective sets, rule of 1 change. If negative signals persist, week of active deload, 7 to 14 days, no sets to failure, increase sleep calories, and consider professional evaluation if there is sustained loss of strength or severe symptoms. UXO equals use, experiment/observe, use data. Experiment with 1 change, less frequency or lower intensity, and observe for 2 cycles before concluding. 6 concrete protocols according to severity, act with criteria. A mild fatigue, 1 to 2 signals, RPE plus 0.5 DOT, MESE 48 menos 72. H to date, Technical non-fatiguing session, 48H. Readiness test, same exercise with 50 to 60% gives do you feel power. 7 days. Reintroduction of one effective set if okay. B. Moderate fatigue, 3 signals, RPE plus 1, RHR plus 3 BPM, DOMS greater than 72H. Today nitrogen monoxide sets to failure, mobility plus recovery, 24 to 72H. Active rest, prioritize sleep and K-call, 3 to 7 days. Retest performance test, 1 heavy submaximal set. If it improves, return to 1 effective set the next session. If not, active pause 5 to 10 days. C. Severe fatigue. Systemic signs are HR plus 5 BPM sustained/infections, low libido. Active pause 7 to 21 days. Walk, light swimming, mobility, avoid sets to failure. Nutrition, maintenance, slight surplus plus 200 to 400 K-call. If aiming to grow, sleep, 8 to 9H. If persistent, greater than 2 to 3 weeks. Medical evaluation, rule out non-training causes. 7 simple readiness tests N equals 1. How to check if you can train hard submaximal strength test. Same exercise, same load as previous session. Do 1 set at 50 to 70%, not to failure. If rep speed are clearly worse, gives no go. Short sprint plyo tests if applicable. Loss of explosiveness equals central fatigue. Morning check, era hertiga, BPM sleep 6H. Energy support, low, if yes, gives reduce. Record the results to see trends. 8. Prevention, how to avoid reaching subclinical fatigue. Rule of restriction, 1 effective set per anchor unless under controlled criteria. Limited warm-ups to approach sets. Don't use long approaches that consume reserve. Don't stack techniques. Maximum 1 advanced technique per cycle and only if data allows. Planned deloads include an active deload every 6 to 12 weeks depending on accumulated intensity. Weekly monitoring, 10-minute review of reps, TUT, RPE, RHR. If 2 indicators move badly, gives early intervention. Life as a cofactor, prioritize sleep, K-call output relationship, and stress management. 9 practical examples, real cases and actions. Example 1. Intermediate who trained every 48H for 4 week signals, RPE plus 1, RHR plus 4 BPM, persistent DOMS. Action today, converts session to mobility and technique, 48H of active rest. If RHR normalizes, gives return to session with 1 effective set. If not, gives active pause 7 days. Example 2. Advanced WHO stacked rest pause and negatives in every session signals. Low libido, bad sleep, general weakness. Action, active pause, 10 to 14 days. Nutrition and sleep as priority. Then reintroduction with 1 effective set and no extra techniques for 6 to 8 weeks. 10 mini checklist for quick intervention to paste in your notebook if you detect second signals. RPE, RHR, DOMS greater than 72H reps today. Nitrogen monoxide sets to failure, mobility technique, 24 to 72H, active rest plus priority sleep, and KCL 48-72H, submaximal retest 50-70. If it improves, gives reintroduce 1 effective set. If not, gives active pause 5 to 14 days. Record weekly reps, TUT, RPE, RHR. Intensity without recovery is just self-punishment. True strength comes when the spark is followed by enough rest for the body to create something new. Paraphrase of Mike Mentzer's philosophy. 11 quick summary. What you should remember: resting too little produces central and peripheral fatigue that cancels the quality of the stimulus. Detecting it early, RPE, reps, TUT, RHR, sleep, DOMS allows you to solve it with simple actions. Reduce intensity. Technical pause, active rest deload. Act with the HEPI DUXO protocol. Today equals don't force. 24 to 72H equals active rest and prioritize. Sleep, calories. 1 to 2 weeks equals reevaluate and decide, reintroduce or extend pause. Prevention, volume rules, monitoring, and scheduled deloads avoids most problems. Section 4. Finding your optimal window. The practical algorithm: frequency plus intensity plus duration. This is the operational section. Here you convert the philosophy: train brief, intense, and infrequent into an algorithm you can test and measure. There is no magic number that works for everyone. The key is to experiment with clear rules, record, and decide with data. Below you will find the reasoning. N equals 1 tests to validate your number of days. Step-by-step HEPIDUXO, templates, 6 to 8 weeks, and concrete examples for beginner, intermediate, advanced. Summary. The idea in 1 line: start in a reasonable range according to your level. Beginner 4-7D, intermediate 5 to 9D, advanced natural 7 to 10D. Test for 2 to 3 cycles. Observe reps/TUT, RPE, RHR and adjust plus or minus 1 to 2 days until your logbook shows consistent micro-progression. 1. How to choose your initial frequency. Practical rule. Choose a starting point based on practical experience, Mentzer style, and your circumstances. Beginner 0 to 12 months, serious 4 to 7 days between sessions per group. Intermediate 1 to 4 years, 5 to 9 days between sessions per group. Advanced natural greater than 4 years, 7 to 10 plus days. Individualize. Factors that move the number down or up. Low age, good sleep. High appetite gives try shorter days in the range. Chronic stress, intense work, poor food or sleep gives lengthen the window by 1 to 2 days. Unstable technique or great muscle damage legs gives add 1 to 2 days. 2n equals 1 algorithm 2 to 3 cycle test how to validate your number of days. Definitions: cycle equals 1 repetition of the stimulus per group. For example, chest once. For heavy duty we consider 1 cycle approximately equals 1 complete session per group. Acceptable microprogression equals plus 1 rep or plus 0.5 to 2% load with the same cadence and TUT in 2 out of 3 cycles. Protocol 3 cycle test equals approximately 6 to 9 weeks. Choose initial frequency according to level, for example, 6 days between sessions. For intermediate, standardize the session. 1 effective set per anchor. Warm-ups 40 to 50% times 6 to 8. Give 70 to 75% times 3 to 5. Fixed cadence, for example 3 south ECC, 1 south pause, 1 south pause, 1 south conk. Record each session load/valid reps/TUT RPE. Next day morning RHR DOMS duration. Repeat 3 complete cycles with the same frequency if there are 6 days between sessions. It will take 3 6 equals 18 days for 3 cycles per group. In practice 6 to 9 weeks per evaluation. Evaluate. If you get micro-progression in 2 of 3 cycles, gives frequency okay or too long. If you improve quickly, you could try 1 day less and retest. If there is no progression and fatigue data is low, normal RHR DOMS less than 72H, gives reduce interval by 1 to 2 days and reevaluate for 2 to 3 cycles. If there is no progression and signs of fatigue appear, RHR RPE, DOMS 7 to H, gives increase interval by 1 to 2 days or deload. Quick decision rule: upon finishing 3 cycles, 2/3 cycles with improvement gives maintain. Consider trying -1 day if you want to increase frequency. 0 to 1/3 cycles with improvement plus fatigue signs gives increased rest. 0 to 1/3 cycles with improvement plus no fatigue signs gives reduced rest. You are resting too much. 3. How to read the 4 key metrics. Reps TUT, RPE RHR. Reps anchor, the primary indicator of progress. Plus 1 rep in the effective set equals good signal. TUT. If TUT drops to maintain the same reps, suspect you are sacrificing quality. RPE. If RPE rises sustainedly without an increase in load, gives accumulated fatigue. Morning RHR, plus 3 to 5 BPM sustained, gives accumulated stress and potential need to increase rest. Use these 4 as your traffic lights. If 2 or more move to yellow-red, act. 4 HEPI DUXO 6 to 8 week template. Step-by-step preparation. Day 0. Choose 3 anchors per session. Chest, back, leg for example. Define target intensity. Target RPE in the effective set, for example, RPE 9 to 10. Decide initial frequency according to level, for example, intermediate, 6 days. Print the recording sheet with columns. Date, exercise, load, reps, TUT RPE RHR. DOM's notes, block weeks 1 to 6 or 1 to 8. Typical weekday X. Session anchors, standard workup gives 1 effective set per anchor. Intermediate days, active rest, mobility. Repeat according to programmed frequency. Continuous recording. Fill out the sheet every session and daily RHR intermediate check upon completing 2 cycles. 10-minute review data. If plus 1 rep in 2/3 cycles, gives maintain. If not, gives apply adjustment. CN equals 1 algorithm. Final evaluation. End of 6 to 8 weeks. Review 3 entire cycles. Reps TUT RPE RHR. Decide maintain reduce interval by 1 to 2 days. Increase interval by 1 to 2 days / deload for 1 week and retest. 5 adjustment protocols. Exactly what to do if you decide to change plus or minus 1 to 2 days. If you reduce the interval, shorten rest. Reduce the interval by only 1 to 2 days. Maintain intensity 1 effective set. Do not add volume. Control for 2 cycles. If RPE rises plus 1 and RHR plus 3 BPM, gives revert to the previous interval and give 1 to 2 weeks of soft recovery. If you increase the interval, lengthen rest. Increase by 1 to 2 days. Maintain pace. Don't compensate by adding more volume. Observe. If progression improves, gives new interval. If progression stalls and technique worsens, gives go back to shortening. 6 simple tests you can apply, practical and quick. Test a simple readiness, 3 minutes. On the planned training day, do 1 submaximal set 50 to 70% of target on the first anchor. Observe possible reps. Speed and feeling. If reps and speed similar to reference, gives okay. If clearly worse, gives delay 1 to 2 days or convert the day to mobility. Test B. Mini progression check post-cycle. Compare the most recent effective set with the one from 2 cycles ago. Plus 1 rep gives okay. Equals with lower RPE gives okay. Drop or higher RPE gives reevaluate frequency. Test CRHR trend. Check daily weekly average versus 30-day average. Plus 3 BPM gives alarm. Plus 5 BPM gives immediate action, reduce or stop. 7 example templates. Schedules for different levels. Beginner, hypertrophy, strength, goal, initial frequency 4 to 6 days, between sessions per group. Example, chest, Monday 1 session gives next session Friday 4 days. 6-week block, 3 to 4 sessions per group, depending on calendar. Intermediate initial frequency, 5 to 8 days. Example, chest week 1 Monday gives week 1 Sunday. 6 days gives week 2 Saturday. 6 days. Reevaluate every 2 to 3 cycles. Advanced natural initial frequency, 7 to 10 plus days. Example, chest. Week 1 Monday gives week to Monday 7 days. Gives if progression is slow, extend to 9 to 10 days. 8 complete practical example, 70 kilograms user, seeks natural mass, intermediate, initial plan. Frequency 6 days per group. Intermediate, typical session chest, warm-up 40% times 8 700 thirds gives machine press 1 to failure. Cadence 311 gives record. Record week 1, S1. 90 kilograms times 8 reps tut 48s RPE 9 RHR next day 56 BPMs 2, 6D after 90 kilograms times 8 reps tut 50s RPE 8.5 RHR 55 RHR 55 BPM improvement S3 60 after 92 kilograms times 6 reps microload tut 45s RPE 9 RHR 56 BPM evaluation after 3 cycles. Micro progression present gives maintained 6D if S3 had been 97 with RPE 9.5 and RHR plus 4 gives reduce interval with RPE 7 and 7. If S3 EPS, if SF gives reduce ugris crease reduce for grus and use epera with use emes san will or plo and gran or pemo cohen and with and wem or meva and wobo our with our will our ta go our guy poop our seleta was for third battle, but that's 9 quick rules for your notebook cheat sheet. Start in the recommended range for your level. Test 3 cycles with the same frequency and conditions. Decision rule. 2/3 improvements gives maintain. 0 menazun GVG de portrays mais nu fatigue gives shorten 1 to 2D. 0 to 1/3 plus fatigue gives lengthen 1 to 2D or D load. If in doubt, restrict less is the first action. Don't add 10 final tips, practical and Mentzerian. Don't confuse natural variability with failure. Use 2 to 3 cycle windows to judge. Maintain discipline. A slower frequency may seem inefficient, but if it produces micro-progression, it is the correct option. Document everything. Without data, there is no reliable decision. Remember, perfection does not exist, but continuous improvement comes from testing with method, not by intuition. Section 5. Practical correction guide and examples what to do today if you fail. Clear protocols for 24H, 3 to 7 days, 7 to 21 days, plus sample plans and a notebook checklist. This section is the operational first aid kit. If you detect that something is failing, whether because you are resting too much or too little, here is exactly what to do right now, in the next few days, and in the following weeks, all in practical language, with rules for reintroducing stimuli, templates by level, beginner, intermediate, advanced, natural, and how to fit it with your goals, gain mass, cut, strength, using the Hepiduxo framework. Quick introduction, what you'll get. Actionable protocols for 3 time horizons 24H, 3 to 7 days, 7 to 21 days. Concrete plans by level with recommended rest days, warm-up set rules, and reintroduction criteria. How to adapt according to goal mass cutting/strength, printable checklist and phrases to paste in your notebook. If this happens, gives I do this. A. Immediate actions based on the problem executive summary. If you are resting too little. Signs, RPE reps, RHR, persistent DOMs. Today 24H, no sets to failure. Convert the session to mobility plus technique or to 1 submaximal set 50-60% times 6 to 8 without fatiguing. Active rest for the next 24 to 48 hours, walking, mobility, light swimming. Prioritize sleep and K-Cole in the next post-activity meal. 48 to 72H. Reevaluate RHR DOMS and feeling. If it improves, give submaximal retest, see tests. If it doesn't improve, gives move to 7 to 21D, 7 to 21D. If it persists or there are systemic signs. Active pause for 7 to 21 days, no sets to failure. Focus on sleep 8H KCAL and recovering energy. Reevaluate and reintroduce in a controlled manner. If you are resting too much, signs. Loss of continuity, worse technique, no micro gains. Today 24H, no drastic action. Plan to reduce the interval by 1 to 2 days in the next programming. Maintain 1 effective set per anchor. Do not add volume. 3 to 7 days. Implement the reduction, for example. Before 10D gives now 8D. Maintain the same session format. 7 to 21 days. After 2 to 3 cycles with a new interval. Evaluate. If micro gains appear, maintain. If not, gives adjust by 1 to 2 more days or review technique. Stimulus. B. Concrete protocols by time horizon. Protocol 24H. Immediate action. You detected sign S today. Cancel. Sets to failure. Do 20 to 40 min of mobility plus 1 technical submaximal set 50 to 60% times 6 to 8. If you want to move the pattern, eat protein plus carbs post-activity recovery. Sleep plus 30 to 60 min before your usual time if possible. Record RPE RHR. Sleep DOMS. Protocol 3 to 7 days short protocol. Mild moderate signals. 48 to 72H. Active rest. No sets to failure. If on day 3 readiness RHR sleep. Feeling. Improves. Gives gradual reintroduction. 1 effective set per anchor with limited warm-ups. If it does not improve, gives extend to the 7 to 21D protocol. Protocol 7 to 21 days medium-long protocol. Moderate severe or persistent signals. Active pause for 7 to 21 days. Walking. Mobility. Technical work. Light cardio. Prioritize. Sleep 8 to 9H. Plus 200 to 400 kcal. D extra if the goal is mass. Ensure protein 1.6 to 2.0 grams per kilogram at the end of the period. Readiness test 1 set at 50 to 70% on an anchor. If good, gives progressive reintroduction. If not, gives consider more rest or professional evaluation. See sample plans by level rest days, warm-up sets, and reintroduction. Universal warm-up set rule. 2 warm-ups 40 to 50% times 6 to 8. 70 to 75% times 3 to 5. Gives 1 effective set to technical failure. No more accessory sets unless by specific criteria. 1. Beginner, 0 to 12 months serious. Target frequency 4 to 7 days between sessions per group. If you fail resting too little, apply the 3 to 7D protocol. Return with 1 effective set and repeat for 2 cycles. If you fail resting too much, reduce interval to 4 to 6D. Maintain structure. Reintroduction. If paused for 7 to 10D, gives start with 1 effective set, but target RPE equals 8 to 9 the first time. Evaluate in 1 to 2 weeks. 2 intermediate 1 to 4 years. Target frequency 5 to 9 days. If subclinical fatigue 48 to 72H. Active rest. If it doesn't improve, gives active pause for 7 to 14D. If excessive rest, shorten interval by 1 to 2D and test for 2 cycles. Reintroduction. When returning from a 7 to 14D pause, start with 1 effective set and no advanced techniques for 6 to 8 weeks. 3 advanced natural greater than 4 years. Target frequency 7 to 10 plus days. If fatigue, act aggressively. Active pause for 7 to 21D is common and prioritize sleep per kilocalorie. If excessive rest, shorten by 1 to 2D but maintain strict control of RPE RHR. Reintroduction. Reintroduction. Reintroduce 1 technique if desired. Only after 4 to 6 weeks of stable progress. D. Reintroduction criteria when to return to sets to failure. To safely return to training to failure, look for all these conditions. Morning RHR returns to baseline plus or minus 2 BPM. 7-day average RPE in submaximal test normalizes or drops. DOMS 48 to 72H and does not compromise ROM. Motivation and energy to train have returned. 2 consecutive submaximal sessions show improvement speed. Reps if conditions are missing. Delay reintroduction or take a longer active pause. E. How to integrate with your priorities. Mass versus cut versus strength. If your goal is to gain mass, prioritize recovery greater than frequency. A slight increase in calories and sleeping 8 to 9H facilitates reintroduction after a pause. Reintroduce 1 effective set with a hypertrophy goal, 6 to 12 reps TUT 4270S, and ensure protein intake. Avoid prolonging pauses greater than 14 days without hybrid stimulus. Mobility plus submaximal sets. If your goal is to cut, maintain muscle while losing fat. In a caloric deficit, recovery is slower. Lengthen windows by 1 to 2 days relative to your baseline. Cautious reintroduction. Target RPE may be 8.5 to 9, not maximum until recovery improves. Prioritize sleep and stress management to avoid turning a deficit into overtraining if your goal is maximum strength. CNS stability is key. If you detect neural fatigue, low explosiveness, apply an active pause and reintroduce with low repetition sets to 6 reps and controlled cadence. Technical reintroduction, progression based on power, speed before TUT. F. How to integrate HEPIDUXO into daily correction concrete tools. H. Schedule. Set target days for each group. If you fail, reschedule with -1 or +1 days according to the protocol. E. Effort. Today equals if fatigue appears, gives reduce effort to mobility. Submax P test. Use submaximal test 50 to 70% before reintroducing. I indicators, RPE, reps TUT, RHRS, daily traffic lights, D decision. Rule of 1 change per block, don't touch multiple variables. UXO use, experiment, observe. Document the intervention and observe for 2 cycles before concluding. G printable checklist to paste in your notebook. IFU. Detect 2 of these signals, RPE, reps RHR, DOMS 72H. Poor sleep gives follow checklist today 24H. No chat sets to failure, yes no. Mobility/technique 22-40 minute, yes no. Record RHR sleep. DOMS, done, 48 to 72H. Active rest, yes, no, retest, submaximal, 50 to 70% done, over no. If it improves, gives controlled reintroduction 1 effective set. If it doesn't improve, gives active pause, 7 to 21X, 7 to 272H, 7 to Ls. If it doesn't improve, gives it as activity does. Efredu epi or H, RH, RH, Arch, HRH, Arcs Lao with or at you and wick elps and sand. With you with R, oh and so, our app, will I will and my up with alpha, bow well, wapped, bow down, top, I fit whip, top, power, sap, I follow while, if pull foul, if it's well, I guess, like a well, let's look at it. So you let the sky was energy motivation, OKH ready-made phrases to paste in your notebook, stickers, reminders. If RPE rises +1 and RHR +3 gives today mobility, tomorrow more sleep. If 2 red signals gives active pause 7 to 14 days. If 2 cycles without microgain and RHR OK gives I shortened by 1 to 2 days. 1 variable per block. Measure before deciding. Practical examples, mini cases and the action taken. Case 1 intermediate RPE +1 submax set for fatigue signals. Today mobility +1 submax set, 48H active rest. If on day 4 RHR normalizes, gives effective session with 1 set. If not, gives active pause 7 to 10D. Case 2, beginner, no progress after 8 weeks and bad technique, signs of too much rest. Reduce interval from 10D, gives 7D. Maintain 1 effective set. After 2 cycles +1 rep appears, gives maintain 7D. Case 3 advanced natural with low libido and broken sleep. Severe signals. Active pause 14 to 21D. Prioritize sleep cals. Reintroduce with 1 set. No techniques for 8 weeks. J. Final benefit why this system works. You get out of the emotional trilander cycle and replace intuition with measurable rules. You avoid impulsive changes that amplify the problem. Orderly work equals sustainable progression. The evidence in your logbook will tell you if an intervention worked. K. Practical closing. Your 1-minute plan for today. Look at your logbook. 2 red signals. Gives follow the immediate checklist. If yes, gives today. No sets to failure. Mobility plus record RHR, sleep. Apply the 48 to 72H protocol and reevaluate according to the rules. Paste sticker. If 2 signals gives active pause 7 to 14D. General conclusion. Chapter 17 Mentzer new. Too much or too little rest can sabotage your progress. Executive summary. The essentials in 6 points. The set is the signal. Rest is the response. Without useful rest, there is no conversion of the stimulus into growth. Without continuity, the signal loses its effect. To symmetrical errors. Resting too much breaks continuity and neural memory. Resting too little accumulates central, peripheral fatigue and turns intensity into self-punishment. There is no universal number. The optimal window depends on U level, sleep, stress, nutrition, and magnitude of the stimulus. Start in Mentzerian ranges, for example, 4 to 7D beginners, 5 to 9D intermediate, 7 to 1OD advanced, and test. Decide with data, not feelings. Use the 4 key metrics reps/tut RPE RHR plus DOMS sleep to make the decision. N=1 algorithm. Test a frequency for 2 to 3 cycles. Evaluate 2/3 microgains gives maintain. 0 menos dividido por 3 mais no fatigue gives shorten. 0 to 1/3 plus fatigue gives lengthen or have tab tip iduxo as the operative. Schedule, effort, test, indicators, decision plus use, experiment. Observe the practical structure to apply all of this day by day. Concrete actions to apply from today. Your instant checklist. If you have to signs of fatigue, RPE, reps RHR, DOMS 7 to H. Today nitrogen monoxide sets to failure. Mobility plus active rest. Record RHR and sleep. If you don't see microgains after 2 to 3 cycles and there is no fatigue, reduce the interval by 1 to 2 days and retest for 2 to 3 cycles. If you are not progressing and there are systemic signs, active pause for 7 to 21 days. Prioritize sleep and KCOL, then reintroduce progressively. Always, 1 effective set per anchor plus 2 warm-ups, 40 to 50% times 6 to 8, 70 to 75% times 3 to 5, 1 variable per block. Rules for your notebook. If you are not improving, gives subtract first. If RHR plus 3 to 5 BPM gives reduce or stop. 2 test cycles are better than a hunch. What to expect if you apply this realistic timeline, 2 to 4 weeks. Reduction in RPE with the same load and better sleep energy. 4 to 8 weeks sustainable microgains plus 1 rep or microload, and fewer lost days. 8 to 12 weeks, stable progression and greater technical solidity. Your logbook confirms it. Closing and call to action. If you found this chapter useful, do 2 things now. Subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters where we will continue breaking down heavy duty with practical templates. Share this video with someone who trains a lot but doesn't progress. It might be the advice that changes everything. Train brief, intense and infrequent, but adjust according to you. The intelligence to stop is what turns effort into progress. Mike Mentzer.